One of the most convoluted stories in the history of gaming is easily the saga between Wonder Boy and Adventure Island. Two series that have intersected and split in so many different ways, a half hour could be dedicated simply to explain where they came from, what they did, and where they ended up. But somewhere in the middle is the most unique of all of them, Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair, released in 1989 for the PC Engine. And that's not to be confused with Wonder Boy 3 The Dragon's Trap on the Sega Master System.
Wonder Boy 3 is such a broad title that it could land in multiple genres. It bears similarities to Adventure Island on the NES. It has auto-scrolling stages that force a player to act on their toes with power-ups like a run and gun. And there are straight-up traditional shooting sections that'll make shmuppers feel right at home. 2 genres out of the 3 ain't bad, so let's take a closer look at what makes Wonder Boy 3 one of the more interesting, if impure, early shooters on the PC Engine CD.
Is it an action game? A platformer? Well, yes. But the real question is it a shooting game? Absolutely. The gameplay in Wonder Boy 3 is definitely interesting if nothing else. Players control Wonder Boy much like they would in Adventure Island on the NES, albeit with a default ability to fire a pellet-style attack to dispatch enemy waves. As the stage auto-scrolls, players will be forced to jump over gaps and onto new platforms accordingly while contending with enemy opposition. Just like in Adventure Island, fruit and candy will appear as the stage progresses, which will fill the player's energy gauge. This gauge will deplete over time, and enemy fire and obstacles will also reduce the amount of energy left. Once it reaches 0, a life is lost.
But the control has some seemingly hidden functionality as well. While in mid-jump, it's possible to control how fast or slow the jump will be. If faced with an exceptionally long jump, holding up will make the jump a bit floatier, and allows for more distance to be traveled. If something is coming your way, or if it seems you'll miss your mark, holding down will make the players plummet downwards. It's a clever mechanic that isn't especially well outlined, if at all, and comes in handy, as if a player ends up in a pitfall or gets hit by an enemy directly, death is instant regardless of energy. Blue fairies can also be collected to grant a player invincibility, which is especially helpful versus rolling boulders.
The stages in Wonder Boy 3 are split into 2 stages. After the platforming section, the game shifts into a straight-up shmup with the same weapons at the player's disposal. Enemy waves during this phase are related to the action phase before it, and unique to each stage specifically.
The enemy waves in the shooting phase change with each new enemy type and can get really tricky. As with the platforming stage, enemy shots deplete player energy and enemies themselves inflict a one-hit kill.
As enemy waves are defeated, new abilities become available for use. At first, they seem to appear in a specific order, but later become randomized as the game progresses. These weapon abilities range from the barrier-style spiral to the super deadly, screen-filling Big Fire, and will also increase the energy in the player's gauge. While finding a weapon that works is obviously ideal in a game with so many implements of death, their random nature and the very limited time they can be used for makes this a bit of an issue.
This makes the game quite a bit more challenging than it may seem, but also forces players to act quickly and adapt as well as can be achieved in order to make it through this game's whopping 14 stages. But never mind the quick on your toes pace, this game is pretty brutal in the difficulty department, especially starting with stage 8. Some of the bosses are particularly vicious, and without the powerful missile power-up, quickly dispatching many of the stage end bosses is rather hard to do without really in-depth knowledge of how every weapon upgrade works. This goes double for some of the shorter ranged weapons like the Spiral.
Scoring high is achieved in a couple of different ways in Wonder Boy 3, with some decent bonuses. Collecting the various foodstuffs that appear are, of course, the easiest way to increase your score, but this has to be done to survive anyway, so yeah. However, if you collect multiple foods in one leap or fall, your points will increase with each successive pickup. In certain cases, huge runs of food can appear that can boost the heck out of a player's score. Weapon power-ups will also add to the score at different rates according to the weapon.
Every now and again, a pink fairy will appear in a bubble. If she is freed and caught, the player that catches her will have huge decadent slices of cake appear instead of the typical food that would otherwise show up. Not only do these cake slices increase player energy in huge amounts, the score associated with them is quite a bit more than indicated at pickup.
Finally, in the shooting phase, defeating the stage boss with as much leftover energy as possible will grant the player a higher bonus score. If a player has the missiles equipped, most bosses can be neutralized in seconds, granting a sweet bonus. On the presentation side of things, Wonder Boy 3 is more or less solid. As with most early PC Engine CD games, there is no real multi-layered scrolling to speak of, but the environments have bright, vibrant color, even in the underground segments.
The characters and bosses are well designed and have a cartoony vibe throughout that really works with the overall theme. There isn't a lot of animation to speak of, though. Despite this, the visuals overall are rock solid.
Wonder Boy 3 also has an upbeat, catchy as heck soundtrack that has literally stayed with me for decades. Whether it's the festive beach stage, the driving cave stage, or the jungle, the OST never fails to impress, especially compared to its 1988 arcade predecessor. In fact, not a single piece in the OST strikes a bad chord.
The sound effects aren't really overbearing or irritating either, so as far as sound goes overall, Wonder Boy 3 is a winner. The best part of the presentation, though, is that the entire game is in English, so no translation is required. So, just how does Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair stack up? Let's take a look.
Wonder Boy 3 offers some pretty neat advanced control tweaks that aren't necessarily well defined.
Moving around, no matter the stage phase, is easy and manageable.
The gameplay in this title is pretty insane, especially starting with Stage 8.
Some of these bosses will f you up mercilessly. Lots of practice will be needed if you hope to make it to the end.
14 stages makes this a very drawn-out experience, but also makes for a difficult challenge begging to be overcome.
Given the insane difficulty, this game went on a bit too long, especially with two sets of very similar stages.
Well-made character stage and enemy design is great, but a lack of parallax scrolling makes this version a bit flat-looking compared to its arcade brother.
Rock-solid visuals are clean and well-made without being too flashy.
An OST that has stuck with me for over 14 years is chill and vibrant. The boss music is fairly epic.
The sound is quite decent, but repeat tracks make the OST a bit repetitive throughout the game.
Wonder Boy 3 almost defies classification, and it did it before it was cool. Hipster glasses, go!
For its time, Wonder Boy 3 sure did some neat things by combining so many playstyles into one game so early on.
As an action game, Monster Lair is pretty great, and the addition of so many shooting elements makes me glad I could review it for Bullet Heaven. Wonder Boy 3 Monster Lair gets a 4 out of 5. The best thing about Monster Lair is that it's a pretty cheap game no matter how you get it. Given the region-free nature of the TurboGrafx and PC Engine CD format, any version you buy will work in any NEC CD unit. Typically, you can snag it for about $20. It's also available on the Mega Drive in Japan and Europe, and on the Wii Virtual Console for just 800 Wii points, making it quite accessible. Just get ready for a wicked challenge.